Okay, I am here and or I should say I am back. Darn it. All right, I tried to give y'all a better a better view from on top of the stand, but the phones don't seem like they want to work today, so we'll just work with what we have. Okay, so as promised, I am here live and we are going to talk about what keto does to your body because I get lots of questions on my posts and in messages about whether or not keto is safe and if I can do it and who should and should not do it. And so today I decided to do a live to actually tell you the facts about keto, the good, the bad, the ugly, the history, the current. And so if you have been curious about what this thing is, or you've heard things about it, good or bad, I am going to be answering all of those questions, inshallah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Arafa Forever on Instagram. Assalamu alaikum. Hello. Salams Alia Wahid 19 on Instagram. Tell me where you are joining me from. I love to know how small the internet makes the world so that we can get to know one another, spread inspiration, motivation, and information, clear the air. So if you are just joining me, maybe you're curious as to, hey, what is she talking about? That was an interesting topic. Or maybe you know who I am and you're like, hey, I want more information. I'd like to thank you because now that you are joining me, I'm officially your coach. So my name is Mubaraka Ibrahim and I am a health and happiness coach. And of the plethora of hats or hijabs that I wear, one of the things that I do is I teach people how to make eating low-carb, ketogenic lifestyle a lifestyle and make it sustainable and get results and use it to optimize their health. So that is one of the things that I do. I do that through my online coaching platform, the MR40 method, as well as challenge women to take on this method for 40 days through the Burn Belly Fat Challenge, which, by the way, we are doing an awesome, never before done Black Friday sale. So go to mr40method.com and join my tribe. So what is the MR40 method and why are we talking about a ketogenic diet? So MR40 method is the topic of my book. All right. I wrote a book a little over a year ago. And one of the things that I talk about as one of the 4 ways that you can balance your hormones and optimize your health is using a ketogenic diet. There is lots of information and misinformation out on the interweb about a ketogenic diet. So what I'm going to try to do today is I personally have been following a ketogenic diet for a little over 2 years, going on 3 years now. I teach women how to incorporate it in part of their lifestyle and how to get results from doing it. But I'm going to try not to be biased. I don't know how successful I'm going to be at that, but I'm going to try not to be biased and really tell you the facts about the ketogenic diet and what it does and does not do. All right. So where did this idea of a ketogenic diet come from? All right. So here is the interesting thing. I personally think this is the most fascinating. I'm being biased. I'm already started. Okay, let me reverse that so I'm not hypocritical. I might be biased throughout this process of explaining this to you. All right. So, the interesting thing about a ketogenic diet that it was actually developed as an alternative to fasting. So often you hear people talking about intermittent fasting and the benefits of intermittent fasting. And many people actually will then eventually go, once they understand how fasting is actually affecting the metabolism, affecting the immune system, affecting the brain, the benefits, that then kind of eventually come into the ketogenic world, right? And that is for good reason. So all the way back to in 1911, so this is not something new. The ketogenic diet is not some new fad that became popular because Kim Kardashian started to do it 10 years ago or whatever. It has literally been around for over 100 years. We are late to the game, to be honest. So 1911, there was a Parisian doctor who was treating children who were resistant to epileptic medication. So these were children who were having seizures. And at the time, it was 1911, there was actually only 2 medications for epilepsy. And these particular children were not responding to medication. And so this particular doctor, he decided that he would try them on fasting. He would literally put them on a 30-day water fast. So 2 things that we know. We know that the idea of ketones actually affecting your body came from this initial kind of study or initial treatment. He would put children on this 30-day water fast. Can you, today, I honestly can't even imagine kids today agreeing to go 30 days with nothing to eat, right? We need to help you 30 days. I mean, we got kids who are overweight who won't even go 30 days without eating a cookie. Can you imagine a kid going 30 days with only water? So these children actually went 30 days with only water. And he reported at a conference that he cured 80% of them through fasting with water. I want you to be able to, I always love it when people are open-minded to what I'm saying to them, but also I understand that this is only going to be an hour live and there's lots of things that you might want to learn. So I want to actually tell you his name. It's in my book. If you have my book, I just got to find out what it is. All right. So while I find it, I'm going to finish telling you. So he began to treat children with fasting. Now, when he reported this, obviously it was very astounding to many doctors and researchers, and they were trying to figure out kind of how in the world do you cure epilepsy with fasting? So in about 1920, a doctor from the Mayo Clinic, he looked at this initial trial or initial treatment of fasting to try to figure out what was it about fasting that actually was so beneficial to the brain that it would stop epilepsy. And what they discovered was the benefit from it is because when you are in extended fast, instead of your body using glucose, which it gets from carbohydrates, your body then shifts its metabolism and it uses fat, converts it into ketones, and use ketones for energy instead of glucose. So, ta-da, 1920, we get the ketogenic diet. So the doctors at the Mayo Clinic, they knew that if you go without carbohydrates, your body would then use ketones for energy. So their goal was to simulate the same treatment because obviously it's not a good idea to tell people just don't eat again, right? There's a limit to how long you can do a water fast. So they wanted to figure out a way, how do we allow people to eat food, get the nutrients they need, but also continue to use ketones as energy? They knew that if you remove carbohydrates or most carbohydrates from the diet, that your body will then switch its metabolic process to using ketones. And so that is what they did, and voila, we had the ketogenic diet. So 1911, the physicians Gallup and Maria Bregan began documenting successfully treating epileptic children with fasting. So that was their names. Important if you want to go look them up. In 1921, Dr. Russell Wilder at the Mayo Clinic proposed the ketogenic diet. So we can thank Dr. Russell Wilder for all the times that we see keto this, keto that, keto that. So what was the ketogenic diet? All right, so 1920, it was again used for both. 1920, it was looked at for epilepsy, and then it began to be looked at as a treatment for diabetes, right? And this is really important because a lot of times people who are type 2 diabetics, they will be told like, don't do this, this is not good, you're not eating carbs. But we know and have known for a very long time that people who are type 2 diabetics can do a ketogenic diet. In fact, it is very beneficial. And finally, after decades of people being looked at out on the fringes of using a ketogenic diet to not just manage, but reverse type 2 diabetes. Don't let somebody tell you that your diabetes cannot be reversed. It can be reversed. You don't have to just manage it. It can be reversed. Last year, the American Diabetes Association has officially endorsed a low-carb diets like a ketogenic diet to manage diabetes. It is officially one of the options that is recommended by American Diabetes Association, even though that we know that they are the largest association in America that whose focus is on people with diabetes. It was a huge win in the ketogenic community for them to actually make this announcement. So I'm fast forwarding. So let's go back. In 1967, scientists discovered that ketones can replace glucose for the brain. All right, so this is a big one because I get this all the time. Every time I post like, stop eating bread, stop eating rice, stop eating pasta, at least one person will come underneath my comment and troll me and tell me what you're saying is dangerous because your brain needs, like the last person that commented, she literally put need in capital letters. Your brain needs glucose in order to function. That is actually completely false. Science have verified it since 1967. So if someone tells you that your brain needs glucose, they obviously are just repeating something that they heard and they don't actually read the scientific information or the research information. The brain can function not only fine, but ketones actually creates a beneficial protective mechanism for the brain. So that's the reason why it is effective for epilepsy. So we know that not only is it effective for epilepsy, but it also helps diminish the symptoms of many neurological diseases, including dementia, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis. All of those diseases have been researched with putting patients on a ketogenic diet, and it is overwhelmingly beneficial because ketones create a protective mechanism for the brain. Your brain can function on ketones, and we have known this since 1967. So, in 1971, a doctor composed a diet that had 60% MCT oil, which is a type of fat, right? And it was shown to be more practical to patients. So here's the interesting part. And we have to make a clear delineation between what we do for a ketogenic diet in terms of weight loss and how it's used medically, because a ketogenic diet is used as a medical intervention. So you should also know that. When they look at a ketogenic diet for medical intervention, it is about what's the ratio of fat to carbs, right? So for medical intervention, your ratio of fat to carbs, they use as much as 90% fat, right? 90% fat, like 8% protein and like 2 or 3% carbs. Sometimes they take the carbs all the way down to 0. people are able to function and thrive that low carbs. So what we know is that a medical ketogenic diet is somewhat different than a ketogenic diet, which we call nutritional ketosis. Our goal for weight loss and to optimize health is to put ourselves in nutritional ketosis. We are not concerned about our focus is not doing medical ketosis. So medical ketosis is when your fat is above 80%. This is what they use in research studies to show a ketogenic diet actually reducing cancer, some types of cancer tumors. When they put children and adults on a ketogenic diet to manage their epilepsy, right? They're going as low as they need to in order to get that management of their disease. And it's very individual. So as they're doing the research, it does become individualized when some people may need, in order to see results, to be low as 2% or 0 carbs. And some people, they can actually bring their carbs up more to 10 or 20, depending on what you're trying to do. 20% meaning. Depending on what your goal is for achieving a ketogenic diet. So what is the process that happens in the body? So here is the physiology. And if you've followed me for any time, you know that I am all about getting you to understand how foods create a physiological effect in your body. So, and I may have explained this before, but I'm going to explain it again for people who they're just tuning into my lives for the first time. And if you are, welcome. Thank you for joining me. So when you go without carbohydrates, so I'm gonna back up a little bit here because I also do want to make a clarification. Carbohydrates, there are 3 macronutrients. There is fat, there is protein, and there is carbohydrates. Fat is an essential nutrient. Your body literally cannot live without consuming additional fat. Fat is what pads our brain. Fat is really important for many organs that we have. You never want 0 fat, right? Even as people, for women, for example, the clinical definition of anorexia is when your body fat falls below 13%. We begin to then have ill health effects, right? A man can go as far as 4%, and his anorexic determination is more like 2 or 1% body fat. But for a woman, we literally will lose our menstrual cycle. Bones begin to become brittle if body fat falls too low. So fat is an essential nutrient. Protein is an essential nutrient. When I say essential, that means that we must consume this in order to maintain health, in order for our body to survive. Protein is an essential nutrient, right? When you don't get enough protein, your muscles begin to atrophy. You become weak. You have lots of functions in your body that stops working properly. You absolutely cannot live without protein. Right? You'll have all type of vitamin deficiencies. This is one of amino acids is what most of your body mass is made of. Consuming protein is consuming amino acids to replenish the cells in our body. So fat is an essential nutrient, meaning you cannot live without it. Protein is an essential nutrient, meaning you cannot live without it. Carbohydrates are not an essential nutrient. I'm going to say that again. Carbohydrates are not an essential nutrient. You can absolutely live and thrive if you never ate another carb in your life. We do not need carbohydrates to live. There is no cell in our body that requires carbohydrates in order for it to function. I remember a while ago, I was listening to some fitness guru, and she said, Oh, well, what we eat, if we are what we eat, then carbohydrates, and you cut out carbs, then that's a part of your cell that's not going to be replenished because we are part carbohydrates. Absolutely not true. The function of carbohydrates is to give us energy, to be converted into glucose and to give us energy. Our body does not take the carbohydrates and turn it into muscle or turn it into organs or turn it into brain. It physiologically, that does not happen. What carbohydrate is literally the fuel. Think of the gas in your gas tank. It is the gas that makes the body run. But just like a car, if you are without fuel made from oil or carb or glucose made from carbs, right? Your body has an alternative mechanism. We have electrical cars. So when gas is not inside of the car, what happens? You can actually turn on the electrical part of the car and the car will run. Our body is so perfectly made. Basically, we were designed in a way that will allow us to survive famine, to survive starvation, to survive. That is the beautiful thing about ketosis. It is a survival mechanism that not only gets us to survive, but gets us to thrive. Can you imagine, like back in hunter-gatherer days, what would happen if it was a bad crop year? And you had no vegetables or root vegetables, and you had no wheat, and you had no rice, and you had to literally go and hunt your food, right? Or even you had to go forage your food, and you had no carbohydrates. What would happen to your survival? You wouldn't be able to think straight. You wouldn't be able to physically move to go and chase the animal. You wouldn't be able to see right. If the only thing that we had to fuel our body was carbohydrates, we would have never survived. So Allah created an alternate mechanism, but you know what? When you don't have carbohydrates, your fat is actually going to fuel your body and make your brain even sharper so you can go out and find food. That is what ketones do. They literally make you sharper. It improves your memory, right? When your body is functioning off of ketones as opposed to glucose, it improves all of the detoxification process of your body, which is called autophagy. It improves all of that. All of that happens because your body is no longer functioning on glucose, but rather it is functioning on ketones. So what I want you to take away from this part of what I'm telling you is, what we've gone over so far is that a ketogenic diet has been used since it was first used in about 1920, but it was developed from fasting, water fasting, right? So a ketogenic diet is designed to simulate fasting in your body while allowing you to eat, right? So that is actually how a ketogenic diet was developed. So I want you to remember that. The second thing that I want you to remember is that being in ketosis is an absolute natural and healthy process. We are meant to actually go through this process on a regular basis, right? Our problem now is that we eat too much. We eat too often, right? Those things, never before in history have we been in a place where we're eating 5 and 6 times a day. Never existed. If you lived on a farm and you had to farm and you had to work, you would not have time to go have 3 meals and 2 snacks a day. The idea that you have to constantly eat every 3 to 4 hours in order for you to maintain your metabolism is completely false. There's no research around that. That was a theory that took on some traction, that had no scientific research to prove it. And we started this idea that, hey, to lose weight, you should eat 3 meals and 2 snacks a day. You do not need to do that. Every time we eat, our insulin level raises up. When your insulin level rises, then your body stores fat. It tells your body it is time to store fat. It is time for us to grow. When we are adults, growing stops going this way and it starts going this way, right? From here to here. We don't want it to go here, right? Eating too often and too many carbohydrates is really the crux of why we have an obesity epidemic, right? It is not because people are eating too many calories and it's a calorie in, calorie out. Our body is not a bank. It's more like the stock market. The quality of those calories, the size of those calories are more important than how many you have, right? If I owned one stock of an HP, which runs at about 20 something dollars a stock right now, versus one stock of Facebook, which is like 500, which one is going to be more valuable to me? That's the same of when you are eating a bag of chips versus you're going to go and eat some greens. Which one is going to be more valuable to your body? So it's really, really important that you understand that. The ketogenic process is absolutely natural, absolutely healthy. Now, what happens in all of the ways in which your body changes? I'm going to touch on that really, really quickly, right? So when you are void of carbohydrates, right? When you reduce the amount of carbs. And when I say carbs, let me say this too, because I was actually a little disturbed, I'm going to be honest, about a comment that I got the other day. So I can't remember, it was one of my stop eating sugar, stop eating honey posts, right? Which everybody freaks out. I don't know why so many people are so passionately in love with honey. When you tell people not to eat honey, they freak out. Anyway, someone commented underneath my post that I was incorrect because raw honey, which is all natural, does not contain glucose and does not contain carbohydrates. That really blew me away because it showed a lack of simple understanding of what a carbohydrate is. Honey is literally 100% glucose. I don't care if you go and shake the queen bee's hand and she kisses it and pours it directly into your palm. It is still glucose. It is still honey. It is still a sweetener. All right? Doesn't matter. And this is nature produces it. Yes. But our problem is we have overindulged in carbohydrates. And in order to bring ourselves back into balance, to bring ourselves back into homeostasis, we have to cut them out. You cannot just reduce them because that rarely lasts. You have to cut them out to rebalance your hormones so that you can be in a position of balance and health, right? That is the most important thing, right? Know that carbohydrates are in everything except animal protein, right? So broccoli has carbohydrates. Collard greens have carbohydrates. Fruit have carbohydrates, right? Vegetables have carbohydrates, particularly root vegetables like carrots, parsnips, potatoes, even sweet potatoes. All of those things have carbohydrates. And I think a lot of people actually really don't understand the difference between a carb, a fat, and a protein. Animal proteins are, meaning fish, chicken, beef, lamb, all of seafood, all of this is an animal protein, which means it is a protein, a food. We take the animal themselves and we eat them, right? Animal proteins have 0 carbohydrates, right? If you look up a recipe and it tells you that your chicken, blah, 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 has carbohydrates in it, then That means that they added things to it that have carbohydrate. So this is a general rule in all of the world. Animals do not have carbohydrates, all right? They're made of protein and fat. Fat is separate from carbohydrates and it's separate from protein, right? You can see animal fat by the skin of an animal is generally made from mostly fat, right? It does have some proteins in it. Fats that you're familiar with is butter and olive oil and avocado oil, and now they make corn oil and vegetable oil and hemp seed oil and sunflower oil. They try to make an oil from everything now. But stick to things that are natural, that stay in their natural process of oil. So any oil in a bottle has been obviously processed because it's in the bottle. But the difference between a corn oil and an olive oil is olives are pressed and the oil comes out. There's very little processing. Corn is grind and they put all kind of chemicals in it and they got to turn it and they got to sit it and they got to add more chemicals in it just to make an oil from it. So it is extremely processed. That's the oils that you want to stay away from, right? Think of natural oils like avocado oil, olive oil, butter, ghee. No, fats do not make you fat. The truth is carbohydrates make you fat because our body stores glucose. This was probably going off on a tangent now because I just feel like there's so much that people need to understand about their bodies. Your body uses carbohydrates to create glucose. And remember earlier we talked about glucose is like the fuel in your body. It is how your body is creating energy to do things, right? We store glucose in 3 places. There's glucose in your blood, right? So if you're diabetic or pre-diabetic, you pluck your finger or whatever and you find out how much glucose is inside of your blood. There's glucose that's stored in your liver, and then your muscles store glucose. So you have 3 places that there's glucose in your body. So it's created. If you're eating carbohydrates, the carbohydrates is being converted into glucose, and then it's being stored in those 3 areas. But those 3 areas cannot store unlimited amounts of glucose. The average person only has the ability to store about 2,000 calories in glucose, right? Once you go above that, your body is then turning the additional glucose into fat cells. So what are fat cells? They are excess glucose that have been converted for storage. Now, this was genius of the body when we were hunter-gatherers because, hey, we can use this. This is like a refrigerator we're carrying around with us, right? It's like, I'm just going to store this energy for later when I need it, right? But now we're sitting at a desk most of the day. We're not going out and, going to pick our vegetables in the field. We're not making our bread, spending 2 hours every morning making the bread from scratch, because all of that is expending energy, right? So when you go eat the bread, then, you've expended a lot of energy. But now we have too much glucose, right? So your body isn't consuming fat and turning it into fat. It is consuming glucose. It is consuming carbohydrates, converting it into glucose, and then storing the glucose as fat. So how do you get that fat back? Now you have to create the mechanism of your body using that fat cell for energy instead, which means the body now can take, when you go on a ketogenic plan, the body can take those fat cells and it can break them down into ketones and use ketones for energy instead of glucose. That's the way the process works on a physiological basis. It is, and I've talked for about 30 minutes. I think that I will give you guys a chance to ask questions now. because I want to make sure that you understand the process, that if you have questions about the ketogenic diet in particular, that you're able to ask them, because I want you to really leave this with information. Does a ketogenic diet work for people with thyroid issues? Yes, it does. I have had many clients that have Hiroshima. Am I pronouncing that right? I always mispronounce that. Hashimoto's, that's what it's called. I'm sorry. Hashimoto's, who are really successful at it. The ketogenic diet is literally the only plan that a person with PCOS should consider. Like, honestly, if you have PCOS, the effect of carbohydrates on your body is exacerbated more than the average person. So when somebody with PCOS says, oh, I feel like I eat one piece of bread and I gain 2 pounds, you do. It's not just in your imagination. You probably do. Because your body has a metabolic dysfunction. And until we balance that, it will continue to do that, and you'll continue to gain weight. And PCOS is not just about weight gain. We know that there's all kind of other symptoms that are associated with it, and it actually puts you at high risk for things like ovarian cancer. So you definitely want to get your body and your hormones under control if you have PCOS. But yes, it can be used for people with thyroid issues. Ghee is healthy, the ones sold at Middle Eastern stores. Ghee is healthy, yes. And I don't know which one is sold at the Middle Eastern store, but I've never seen any unhealthy ghee. So if it's ghee, then it's healthy. Is butter safe? Absolutely. How many years have people been eating butter? We've literally been eating butter for 1,000 years. Why is it all of a sudden, since 1970, it becomes bad, right? So we have to really think about when we hear the villainization of whole foods, you have to really consider, does this really make sense? So I'll give an example. People say, oh, don't eat red meat. Red meat is bad. Don't eat red meat. Red meat is bad. Red meat is not bad. Processed meat is bad. Having a hot dog is very different than having a piece of steak. A hot dog has chemicals in it. It has nitrate, which is a carcinogen. It has preservatives in it. It has a whole bunch of stuff that's not inside of a steak. We've been eating steak for thousands of years. We've been eating hot dogs since like the 1950s. So butter is definitely safe. Butter does not clog your arteries. So here is a really important point. One, because I'm limited in my time, I don't have time to break down each and every one. I'm going to certainly refer you to an excellent documentary on Amazon Prime called Fat Fiction. Go watch that. It is a documentary that talks about the campaign that was based on no scientific research to villainize fat. And one of the things that they explain, the researchers in the film explain, is that the clogging of the arteries is really a protective mechanism. It is the excess glucose that damages the artery, and then our body uses fat to try to heal it, and then the artery becomes clogged. So I think the researcher inside of the film said it's sort of kind of like blaming the firemen for going to put out the fire, right? The idea that it clogs your artery and it's bad for you is relative to the rest of your diet. If you're eating crap, if you're eating a whole bunch of carbs, if you're having a potato with butter on it, yeah, it can have some ill effects. But when you don't have carbohydrates in your system, your body is literally using the fat for energy. It is not going to clog your arteries. Does it cause high cholesterol? Some people ask me and I didn't know. No, being on a ketogenic diet does not cause high cholesterol. your cholesterol may raise a couple of points, but that is because it actually improves and raises your HDL, which is the good cholesterol, and it decreases the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol. It literally changes the cholesterol ratio, right? The idea that a ketogenic diet is gonna give you high cholesterol and heart disease is absolutely false. It is a myth. There is no research that proves that. That is only said by people who don't understand the physiology behind what a ketogenic diet do. And yes, that may include medical professionals. I have to say that. Medical doctors are given one nutrition class in like 8 years of training. They are not nutritionists. They're only telling you what their medical journal told them to tell you, right? They're not going to look at the research unless you have a really good doctor who actually goes and looks at nutrition. Would this work for a 40-year-old parent that has 7 kids? Absolutely. If you're a human being, sure. Absolutely. There's no age limit to who a ketogenic diet will work for, right? I'm thinking of a juicing for 3 days. What would be your advice for someone who wants to detox? Don't do a juicing fast. Juicing is not a detox. Juicing is juicing for 3 days. All right? So the reason why I say this is, again, this is about the physiology. This is, and understanding this is actually going to keep you out of the realm of just following whatever person, blogger, Insta person who's telling you do this, be this way, and this is what happened with me, and it's going to help you. Understanding the physiology and the reason why you're doing something is going to be absolutely essential to keep you from being a sheep, right? Actually following. When a person says, I'm going to make some assumptions here, right? When a person tells me, I want to detox, right? I am thinking that what they want to do is they want to give their system a rest, and they want to allow the system to repair and restore itself. Remove the things that are not beneficial and repair and restore itself. Our body's natural process of doing this is a process called autophagy, right? We actually have the physiological ability to do it on our own. We're supposed to actually do this at night, right? Our autophagy raises a little bit where your body detoxifies itself, right? There's not many things that you can consume that is going to cause you to detox. No, juicing carrots is not a detox. Juicing carrots is you taking sugar and vitamin C and drinking it. It's not a detox. In order for your body to detox itself, you must lower your insulin. The process of autophagy does not happen in presence of a raised insulin level. Doing a 3-day water fast is a detoxification. Doing a juice detox, I don't care what things people are putting together, what combination of fruits and honey and dates or whatever it is not a detoxification. And that's one of my personal, so not to be hard on that one, but that's like one of my personal things. Stop telling people to juice to detox. You don't know what you're talking about. Your body physically is not detoxing. You're just starving yourself. Okay? So, no, I do not believe in juice detoxings because physiologically it does not happen. Okay, for honey, do we limit it to medical use or eliminate it altogether? Eliminate it altogether. Eliminate it altogether. And I know I'm going to have all of these people underneath this video and inside of my DMs telling me, oh, but honey has vitamins and honey is nutritious and honey is this, honey. You can get your nutrients from someplace else. And no, it's not going to change your relationship with food. When someone says, I'm allergic to peanuts because it is causing me to break out in hives, and I tell them, don't eat peanuts, no one says, but peanuts are good for you. You can have just a little bit. If your condition, which in this case, I am considering if you are overweight, you have metabolic syndrome. If you are obese, you have metabolic syndrome. If you have insulin resistant, you have metabolic syndrome. It is literally an illness. Honey is like a person being allergic to peanuts and they're eating peanuts. Don't have it. You don't need it for medical. There's plenty alternatives. And even in Islam, there's plenty alternatives. It is not the only thing that is suggested for medical use. Okay, to make ghee at the Arabic store, what do I need to make sure it is a healthy one? Just read the ingredients. As long as it's not, look at the ingredients and make sure it's just cream, butter. They didn't add other things to you. How can you tell you are in a state of ketosis? Oh, I like this one. All right, how can you tell you're in a state of ketosis? So, number one, when you are following a ketogenic diet, it is literally the only diet that exists that can objectively, meaning not from you just thinking or making up or having some feeling or looking at the scale, that you can objectively see the physiological change in your body by testing it, right? You can test, so being in a state of ketosis is about how many ketones you have inside of your body. You can test that either with urine strips, which is the cheapest and easiest way to start when you're first starting a ketogenic diet. Once you've been following it for about 3 months, then urine sticks are less accurate. So if you happen to be on a ketogenic diet and you've been doing this for 6 months or a year, urine strips aren't telling you much, because your body actually becomes more efficient at using ketones and it's going to produce less. So you're thinking that you're not in ketosis and you're actually in ketosis, right? The other drawbacks of urine strips is that if you are overhydrated, it's going to tell you that you are in a lower state because your urine is mostly water. And if you are underhydrated, then the urine sticks is going to tell you that you have more ketones than you actually do because you don't have enough water. So use your urine strips. They're cheap. They're simple. You can get them from any pharmacy. And so they're easy to use. The second way that you can tell, I'm going to tell you all of the official ways, and then I'll tell you about some of the physiological things, is using a breathalyzer. You can buy one for about $50, $60, and you literally, one way in which your body expends ketones is literally through your breath, right? In a ketogenic world, we call this fruity breath. Literally through your breath, you blow into a device. Maybe I'll do one live actually showing you, because I have all of this. I won't show you the urine strips, but I'll show you the breathalyzer and the finger prick. So there's a breathalyzer. And then there's also a blood ketone monitor, which costs round about anywhere between $80 and $100, right? When should you use either one? One, to get started, definitely get the keto strips, right? If you have more than 50 pounds to lose, and if you are going to continue this as a lifestyle, you want this lifestyle, invest in the blood monitor. It is the most accurate, right? It's going to tell you exactly how many ketones is in your blood. Those ketones, your blood is what is fueling everything in your body. It is the most accurate. Breath and urine just tells you what your body isn't using, what's the excess, but the blood will tell you. Now, physiologically, some of the things that's going to happen is, particularly when you first go into ketosis, you're going to have a big weight drop, right? Once you cut out carbohydrates, your weight is going to drop significantly. The first couple of weeks is normally, the first week in particular, is normally you're going to see a weight loss, probably about 5 pounds or so. The reason why you initially see a big weight loss is because you're losing a lot of water weight. Physiologically, again, I know I use that word a lot, but I want you to understand that I'm talking about on the cellular level. Every cell, every molecule of carbohydrates has 4 molecules of water attached to it. So when you don't have carbohydrates, the water is released. So normally the first 3 to 5 pounds is water weight. After that, you're burning fat, right? You're actually burning fat. So weight loss, when the scale is going down, that's a sign of ketosis. Having more energy is a sign of ketosis. Having deeper sleep but needing less of it is a sign of ketosis. Having what we call fruity breath, right? It's kind of hard to explain, but it's not quite Ramadan fasting breath. It's not that bad, but it's not exactly like regular breath. Okay, fruity breath, that's another sign of ketosis. So those are some of the things that you are having a clearer thought, right? Really being able to focus on something for a really long time. That is another sign of you'll feel like you're just on when you're on. All of those are signs of ketosis. How can we cut off on sodium? You do not. So that is another thing about being in the state of ketosis. Sodium is actually an essential electrolyte that you are going to need. Many people actually need to increase their sodium intake because it is going to help you avoid constipation that some people will complain like, oh, well, I'm doing a ketogenic diet and I'm constipated. That generally happens when you have an imbalance of electrolytes, sodium being one of those. Sodium is actually one of the most essential. So even though you may be used to like, oh, I need to reduce sodium because of my blood pressure. When you come on a ketogenic diet, you will need to use sodium. So if you're used to not having sodium at all, you will begin to salt your foods because it is an essential electrolyte in the process of your body. And by the way, ketogenic diet has also shown to reduce blood pressure. Okay. Don't like meat much. What's the substitute? Fish. And there is inside of my program, I give an entire vegetarian meal plan. So that's another myth about a ketogenic diet. No, you do not have to eat meat every single day, right? You cannot substitute meat with beans because beans, although they have protein, number one, it's an incomplete protein. Number two, it also has lots of carbohydrates, so you will not be in a ketogenic diet, right? So it's really important that you understand. That's why I was explaining the 3 macronutrients, because it's important that you understand that some things have carbs that people think don't have carbs. Some people think, oh, beans is a vegetarian protein. One, it's an incomplete protein. You actually have to add it with rice in order to get all the amino acids. And number 2, it has a lot of carbohydrates in itself. It is not allowed in a ketogenic diet. So vegetable and canola oils, they are not healthy. No, I do not recommend vegetable or canola oil. How many times in a week do you get to coach? So if you joined my program, we get on a live Zoom every week, once a week. But if you have any questions in between then, I am always reachable by tagging me inside of our private Facebook group. And also we have a private WhatsApp group. So, well, you're on Facebook, so that maybe work for you. But if WhatsApp is your thing, that group is super active. People love the WhatsApp group. They do so much sharing in there and supporting and recipes. And the WhatsApp group is like banging. So I would, so that is how the program works. So eating high fat should keep you full, right? The last 2 times I've tried keto, my good fat was 70, but I still never felt satisfied. Could it be from not eating enough calories? Your fat was 70% of your diet and you did not feel satisfied, then 1, you probably needed more protein. Protein keeps you full longer. Fat fills you up at the meal. Protein keeps you full longer. And not getting enough calories can definitely do it. So here is one of the practical aspects of combining ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting. When you combine them both together, a lot of people don't feel the need to eat as much. And sometimes your need to eat will be less than what you need for your daily caloric intake. So in our program, we often see people trying to do longer fasts more often, right? 24 instead of 16-8. But if they're doing 24 and in that 4-hour time span, they're like, I really can't eat. And then they're trying to do 24 again the next day, and halfway through their fast, they're like famished. It's because you didn't give yourself a long enough eating window. So this is about knowing your body, knowing what you're eating, and it's a process. It's a learning process, I'll be honest. Couple more questions. What are healthy alternatives to people who like to have a lot of salt in their food? What are healthy alternatives to people who like to have a lot of salt in their food? Is this related to a ketogenic diet or just in general? In general, there's plenty salt substitute. They sell, I think it's called potassium chloride as a salt-free substitute. So on a ketogenic plan, you need salt, so we eat salt. Do we have to get groceries for the challenge? Should our families be on it? Hard to make 2 meals. The meals are really simple and easy. You should not have to make 2 meals, to be honest. Like, the only thing that I suggest is that you don't make one pot meals. Those will be difficult. So if you're making a baked chicken, some cabbage and rice, everybody is eating. You eat the baked chicken and the cabbage, not the rice. Your husband, your kids, everybody else can have everything else. Really, I tell people, don't make it complicated. It is really very simple. You can make this as simple as possible. All right? Is vitamin D milk okay, or cheese or cream in my coffee? All right. So if you have joined the challenge, right? I will talk to you on Wednesday, but no, we don't, not milk. Cream, heavy cream is okay. And cheese is okay, but no milk. Couple more questions. Everything is electronic for the Burn Belly Fat Challenge. All right, I have to answer. I'm sorry, Insta people. I wasn't even paying attention to my questions over here. Oh, I think I answered that. Leftover legacy. What oils are the best to use? We answered that earlier. Things that are the least processed, like avocado oil and olive oil. And try to stay away from the very processed ones like canola, vegetable, and corn. How do I get more information from you? How do you get more information? You have to make sure that you click that bell button so that you can be notified of my lives. I am having an amazing Black Friday sale right now where I can coach you along with a group of an amazing women all on the same journey of health and wellness, and mr40method.com. So the number 40 is where you can sign up for the coaching program, where I take you through ketogenic eating, intermittent fasting, angiogenesis inhibiting foods, and a full Metcon workout program. It is all included, and it's 50% off for Black Friday. So you definitely want to go there and do it. Yes, the challenge is okay for nursing moms. I have quite a few nursing moms. In fact, not this one, but the challenge before, I included an entire section inside of the dashboard that has advice specifically for nursing moms. So what you need to do to modify if you're nursing exclusively, what you need to do to modify if you're nursing to supplement your child's food. Also in there are some herbal teas that can help you, what signs you need to look for of that you need to modify or you don't need to modify. Yes, I have an entire section there. We currently do not have the book and paper format, unfortunately. The printing company that I used for the book went out of business, and so now I have to find a new printer. So I offer it in the digital format right now, and it is not in print form. All right, Thank you very much for attending my live today. I appreciate it. I appreciate you, and I hope that you are starting the week off planning how you can have a healthier, happier week, because it's one day at a time, okay? So I will talk to you definitely on Thursday. So I am committing that I will come live on Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Make sure that you subscribe to the notifications for this page, that you are following it so that you will get the notifications when I'm live, and so we can talk. So Thursday, we're going to talk a little bit in detail about intermittent fasting, right? We're going to go into a deep dive about intermittent fasting, and I'll talk to you then. Assalamu alaikum.